Hi guys. Anything going on? This is Christina from Black Tea News, and I people have been calling, people have been asking um how I felt or what did I think about what happened yesterday. People were calling and asking yesterday. And actually my morning started not started, but my sister called me early yesterday to ask me what I thought about the Georgia election and was I concerned about the next 4 years and was I guess scared, and I said, "No, because I'm just gonna, pray and focus on what I can do." And I said, we're people of strong faith, and I said, we're gonna pray and we're gonna try to reach people that way through the gospel and stuff. So I was just trying to encourage her that way and to get some perspective on that. So I was waiting, I guess. I had a lot of friends who went to DC and stuff, and I never ever thought that Mike Pence would delay the certification or anything like that. I wasn't expecting anything to change in regards to that. So I was just kind of waiting for some people to express that they were upset and just kind of pick up the pieces in that regard. I didn't expect all the stuff that happened yesterday to happen, but in hindsight, I guess it makes total sense. Because why wouldn't opportunists try to create opportunity in that situation? So, first things first, that was crazy. Some stuff that happened, I heard happen and saw was just crazy. Get that out the way. I don't like riots. I think if you're going to protest, I think you need to be productive. I know a lot of people go to a lot of different protests. People have them all the time. I haven't been to a lot myself. But I think if you're going to do some work, it needs to be productive as possible. So I thought what happened yesterday was crazy. I'm just going to get this out the way. Wasn't Yes, there were people there. There were Antifa. Um, but they weren't all Antifa guys. They just weren't all Antifa, and that's just the truth. But there were people who there's photographs of people who were there at the Capitol, and they were at other Antifa marches. So, but of course, there would be instigators there to, because that's what they do. They go to those places and they instigate and they like to cause chaos, and just not just them, but I'm sure there's anarchists there and other people. But there were people who were like white supremacist kind of alt-right folks, pretty nasty kind of people who were there as well. Live streaming in Nancy Pelosi's office. Good luck, guys, because you're probably going to jail. Well, I don't want to wish you luck. But not smart. I don't know why you do that at all. Um, so there's guys like that. And there were people there who went inside who were just, I guess, normal kind of people who got caught up. But that wasn't wise. It wasn't wise. And there's some people who felt like, I guess they had the right to do that because it's the people's property or whatever. But I'm going to say, obviously, I don't think that was something that the president wanted or his allies would really want, because to to squash the movement that they could build for the next couple of years, you wanted to continue being a big political player. Um, that was an easy way to kind of squash that momentum. So, congratulations, you hurt the person you love. So it just wasn't wise. It just wasn't wise to do all those things. And just really not great behavior. I haven't talked to a lot of people who've been there. I've seen some interviews of people who went and explained kind of their thought process when they went there. And it just kind of sounds like some people who weren't necessarily bad actors got caught up and went in the movement, and they kind of thought that, what else could we do, and went in there. But I'm just kind of like, what did you think you could do if you went inside there either? It just wasn't a great plan. So I obviously don't condone behavior like that, especially just because it's not right, but also because it just wasn't wise either. Pe- People saying there wasn't protection in the Capitol. There was protection there. Obviously, there wasn't enough, and so I see some people saying that going saying that I don't know, that kind of stuff couldn't happen if it was planned, or that some people just let folks in. I and there's one video with what kind of just looks like people coming in, or the police letting them kind of come past the barricade, but people who recorded that kind of explained it differently, and essentially they were outnumbered, and they weren't going to fight 100 to 1 or whatever, but and the reason why they didn't have as many people, so they claim, is because they didn't want to have such a big presence that it caused more unrest. That's not wise. That wasn't a wise decision. Obviously, hindsight is 2020. But just assuming, let's say you didn't assume that the Trumpers would be violent, because they do stuff all the time, and there's not like a bunch of violence and stuff, but just I don't know, from a common sense standpoint, you would think that any kind of large gathering like that, where there's like some kind of political differences, such it's been such a hostile environment just for not just the past 4 years or whatever, but for a while, that there could be bad actors one way or another. So it wasn't wise to not have more people, especially considering what they were doing that day, especially since our vice president was there. So they didn't security wise, they should have had more people there. And some people, and when you, so we have it wasn't wise. It should be condemned. People made a mistake. Yes, there was Antifa there, but yes, there was MAGA people who went in there, made a dumb decision. They are prosecuting people. There are some people that were silly and stupid and live streamed, and the FBI will probably, I don't know, pay you a visit, and you'll be charged, or should be charged for doing all that stuff. And so we covered that, but there's people saying that like Chris Evans and other people are saying that if these people were Black, then they would have been handled differently, or the police would have been rougher, and which is silly considering that a woman was shot and killed by the police. So I don't know how much rougher you guys wanted them to be. And people have been making a lot of comparisons to the riots and stuff that were happening over the summer, and I don't know why, especially since people who I don't know who decided to bring up these comparisons first, but obviously the stuff that happened over the summer was insane. A lot of businesses were burned down, lives were destroyed. Literally like 30, at least 30 people were killed, including retired police officer Dorn, and which his execution was filmed, and people were, hitting police officers with bricks and throwing stuff at them, and people were literally cheering on the chaos. People of like low income housing being burned down. It's not like people didn't have control. I saw a video of people doing riots, and I think this was in Atlanta, and they were going around, and then when they got to a Waffle House, they're like, "Nah, not here." And it's like, so okay, so you guys aren't just caught up in the moment. You can make rational decisions, and you can decide like, no, we're gonna burn down low income housing. We're not gonna burn down our Waffle House. That would be crazy. Let's go loot a Target instead. So and you hear people say stuff like, we were doing it out of, they were doing it for justice, and what, were you robbing Gucci stores for justice? Were you and people say like, not, those weren't all the protests. Of course not, and I had family and friends that went to Black Lives Matter protests, but when you say that Black Lives Matter is marching for equality and justice, like, no, they're marching to disrupt the nuclear family, destroy cisgender privilege, and defund the police. It was all on their website. And if you say like, well, the movement is different than the organization, it's like, okay, but you probably need to rename your movement because they've been here for a while. So so I don't know why people feel the need to why they wanted to bring up the comparisons, especially people on the left. But I will say that the media is really covering things differently. You had like our incoming vice president who in the summer she tweeted out a link to a fund to donate to people to get people out of to bail people out of jail who were locked up for the riots and stuff, and that fund paid for a lot of people for a lot of different things, not just like if people who were accused of committing alleged murder and attempted murder and rape and other stuff like that, they would just pay. So it was Kamala Harris, Steve Carell, and other actors and famous people helped get a lot of money for this fund that they don't care what you allegedly did. They just don't like cash bail. So they try to just get whoever out. And so they put a lot of bad people, alleged bad people. I mean, everybody has to have their, be proven in the court, I guess, but allegedly a lot of bad people out on the streets to kind of keep justifying and feeding into the riots, and like CNN would have like fire in the background. Remember, they had a chyron at the bottom. It was like fiery, but mostly peaceful protest. So they were bending backwards in all kind of ways, like pretzels, to justify the crazy stuff that happened over the summer. And like, I remember people were talking about stuff happening out where I'm living. I'm just like listening to the news and looking up stuff on Twitter. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, I hope, because I was surprised about some stuff that happened not too far, kind of in a suburbanish area, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I hope it doesn't get to where I am, because I don't know how that's gonna go down. And so people were scared and concerned, and there wasn't that much media outrage as there is kind of going on right now. And when people start to try to squash that or quell that, if the police tried to stop it, or they talk about how brutal they are, if Trump tried to say something or do something, they say he's a tyrant. And people didn't want that chaos to end, because it's like Littlefinger from Game of Thrones says, chaos is a ladder. And I think we need to, I hate that being involved in politics just makes people kind of pessimistic, I guess. And but I think what we need to kind of realize and accept is that there's just some people who do not care about the well-being of others, and would rather risk or see people at harm if they can acquire some kind of power. And that's why there is such a narrative and a protection of the narrative during the summer. And even though obviously a lot of bad things were happening, they wouldn't talk about the bad things. Like even at the whole DNC convention, they talked about people going after peaceful protesters rather than addressing, a lot of people who are actually hurting. But when they go to the Capitol, where all these, elitists in work and stuff, obviously they were doing something really important for our democracy, and it's a little different. However, democracy isn't just a one-day thing. It's not just an election. It's not just a ceremony. It's not just people coming together to vote for one thing. Our government requires a consent of the governed. It requires shared values. It requires a lot of different things, and people have been chipping away for the sake of gaining power, because America if you compare tear at certain sections of people and keep them divided over certain things, you can creep in and take advantage of the chaos. And that's, something that is kind of a slogan on the left. Never waste a good crisis. Rahm Emanuel coined that phrase. Hillary Clinton's repeated it. You heard people during the pandemic say that, hey, we're not gonna, we can still change things and do stuff and basically achieve our goals during such a time as this. And it's like, well, thanks for letting us know your master plan. And I made that kind of comparison a couple of weeks ago. I'm like on my Facebook, when people were talking about people's businesses being closed down, and they've been shut down for a long time. In Michigan, restaurants are still shut down. But every time like the budget's not passed or something, and the government needs to shut down, it's like chaos, and the media acts like it's chaos, and the right and the left act like it's chaos, and they're like, oh no, our government workers can't be paid because we haven't passed this budget. And I, they should pass a budget. That's what they're hired, well, or elected, to go there to do, to make sure this stuff happens. But there's just a different sense of urgency compared to people who have lost so much this year. And so there we just see such a difference between elitism, and it's not just a right or a left thing. So much wealth has been just kind of transferred from, small businesses. A lot of them been wiped out, and you see these big tech giants and corporations and stuff who have really benefited, and we're not in a great spot right now. The president, a lot of people are upset right now. I don't feel like we've really had someone who or had like a big bring us together moment or anything like that really since Bush was in office, and kind of like 9/11 sort of time. And Obama wasn't great at it. I know a lot of people love him, but he wasn't great at that, and neither is Trump particularly. Well, he's not. And even if he was, the media wouldn't let him be either. And I say that because he's given some nice speeches, and they can be totally positive, inspirational, great speeches, uplifting, and so on. But they will report it as it was dark and divisive, and like his Mount Rushmore speech was like it was racist, and it was like, how was that racist? And so the media won't let there be any sort of coming together either, because they don't want to, because chaos is a ladder. They wanted opportunity to get the result that they wanted. And I don't blame the president for feeling like the election was not legit, I suppose, because from his point of view, he just knows how everybody has been fighting against him. He knows certain things that he hasn't done, like with the Russia collusion stuff. And they're like, he's illegitimate, he's a Putin pawn, he did this and that. And he's just like, no, I didn't. And came out, he really didn't. He was telling the truth, and he didn't pee on Russian prostitutes and all the other stuff. People were like, serious people were alleging and trying to push, and they impeached him, not maybe so perfect phone call, but there was no crimes alleged in the impeachment, and people were talking about impeaching him from jump, and trying to get him out forever. And so, and he saw trouble brewing with the mail-in voting and all this other stuff, and so he could see the system happening and working, and the media just being totally biased, and tech being totally biased, which is funny because I read in an article the other day, I believe it was in the New York Times. I can't even remember what the articles. I think it was about the stimulus checks and stuff, and they mentioned how Mitch McConnell brought up Section 230, and they said that, the president keeps talking about Section 230 because of media bias, even though he has no proof, because conservatives are doing well on the on the internet. It's like, because you didn't kill us, that means there hasn't been bias. Like, at least you didn't die. Is that the model you're going with? Because you survived the attempts, that there's no bias. There's definitely been bias. Like Stephen, there was shadow banning and other stuff like that, or something with the ads that I think Steven Crowder had to get his lawyer and go after, like Facebook and other stuff about. And no, there's definitely bias, just because people like certain conservative commentators, and certain conservative commentators survive and still manage to find popularity, doesn't mean that there's not some kind of bias. But I just thought it was funny that that's the way they present it. Like, they said it without proof, just like as if it's just some kind of large conspiracy theory. So I can see him being upset and feeling the way that he feels. But everybody and some people might be upset with me saying this, but um, if people are mad at Mike Pence for not like uprooting the entire election, and they're mad at people for voting for it or whatever. Maybe they don't feel that the evidence was there. Now you can feel that they're wrong, but they're still pledged to uphold the Constitution. They're elected by their constituents or whatever, and they have to do what they feel is right for themselves, their families, their constituents, the democracy. And if they don't feel like the case was made or made strongly enough, what do you expect them to do? I'm not saying there's not rhinos. I'm not saying there aren't people who just want to Trump out or anything like that, because obviously that is true. But just because everybody doesn't agree with you doesn't make them a traitor. And that's just the legit, honest truth. And not everybody who isn't willing to die on the altar of the election fraud stuff is necessarily a traitor. I think at some point you have to give some of these people a pass for just doing what they feel is right. Just like people who went to march at that Capitol, not inside, but is outside and participated there, felt that did what they felt was right, and did at the time what they felt that they could, the only thing that they could do. So there needs to be some respect on at least Trump. Give it to some of the people on your own side. There's so many people creating enemies at every turn, and it's just not fair. It's just not fair. I will say there are some people who are like ready to tap out and are saying, oh, the Republican Party is in shambles, or, oh, I'm never going to vote Republican again. And I think there's some people are saying that because they're embarrassed about some of the things that happened yesterday. Some people are saying that because they're upset at Republicans who wouldn't stand up and, vote, to decertify the election or whatever. And to say, guys, just get a grip, get a grip. Because the Democrat Party, they fought for slavery. They fought to maintain it, and they fought for segregation and all that other stuff. And they are still the Democrat Party. They're the same Democrat Party. They did not. No one made them dismantle themselves and start over again. They're still there, stomping as proudly as they can, with full control upcoming of the government. They, as a matter of fact, they just voted in their nominee who was like for segregation. So if these people can like proudly be who they are, I'm not saying they're all proud of those things and that happened in their past. They just kind of pretend like it wasn't them, and they say stuff about the big switch and all that other stuff. And that's not even like accurate. The big switch, that's not even true. But so they create all these things, but my point is that they didn't have to like just dismantle themselves. They just kind of keep marching on. So if you feel like you need to tear down everything that the party is right now because didn't go your way, or because you're upset, maybe you're not a party kind of politic person, but if you are, or if you have been, you just kind of need to buck up and keep fighting. You can be sad for a little while, but you need to buck up and kind of get back to business eventually. I think the problem with so many people is that, and on the right and the left, I would have said mostly the left, but obviously there's people on the right who are just like too involved and too emotionally invested. And it matters who our president is. It matters our local government. Don't get me wrong. All these things matter. I think this is a really important election. And I think we need to be vigilant, because I think there are bad things ahead. But you got to look at other things in life and still look at your family, still look at your church, look at things that you can personally do. The election fraud case that was there, I guess there's maybe some things that people could do on a personal level. But a lot of that was the president's case to make. And there's some people who didn't feel like, I guess, he made a strong enough case. I think I'm not surprised, of course, didn't hear some of the cases. I think some of the things were valid. people sent me some crazy kind of stuff sometimes. Not everything that people said panned out or sound like they would pan out. I think the procedurally, a lot of things that they're talking about them overstepping laws, election laws, was probably their best bet. But the courts didn't hear it. So there's only so much that you as an individual can do on that front. But there's things that you can do as far as next time. I know a lot of people don't hear about next time, but you know what? Here's an example. Stacey Abrams. She lost in 2018. And she was annoying because she just kept popping up everywhere, and they kept pretending like she was the de facto governor of, of Georgia. But you know what? She kept on and she kept working. And you can dislike her all you want, but you can respect her grift. And she made a difference in the Senate. There was other factors at play, obviously, but you have to plan for the future and find a way to move on, not drop out of politics, but just find a productive way to move on and be effective. But storming in the Capitol, it's not the way. It's not the way. And I can appreciate everyone coming together and unity and supporting the president and everything like that. For whatever reasons that you felt that you would go down there to DC. But I didn't expect anything to happen. That day, I didn't want to rain on a lot of people's parade, and there's a lot of friends of mine that went down there, and I just didn't, and I never expected Pence to do anything like decertify the election. And I know that there are growing numbers of people talking about it in the House and in the Senate, but I didn't expect that they'd get enough people who would go along with it either. On the flip side, I do want to point out that people like rewriting history and pretending like this stuff didn't happen like last time are crazy. Obviously there wasn't like a big Capitol like thing that happened in 2017, but there were people who were trying to get people to decertify the election. They couldn't find any senators basically to go along with it, so it kind of died in the House. But there were people who were storming state capitals. I was there in Michigan at the state capitol when people came in while we were trying to vote for the electors. That was a thing that happened. And people writing nonstop, harassing our electors, in some case threatening them if they did not, become faithless electors. That was a thing that happened. Celebrities get on crying and not crying, but begging, please, change your vote and all these campaigns. People were doing that. I was there at the inauguration when people started to go crazy and riot in downtown, and they busted some windows. There was a limousine that was set on fire. I had the good sense, let's say it was divine intervention, just felt like we should leave a little bit early, so we did miss that particular violence. But that night when we went to the inaugural ball and we were standing in line, there were people who Antifa, and I don't know if they were calling themselves Antifa at the time, but people who were attacking women in the line, usually older white women who seemed to be kind of alone in the line at the inaugural ball. And so I was with my sisters, and so we were kind of gearing up, because Yaktown don't back down, and we were getting ready like, these people aren't about to, mess up our dresses and push us around, and we'll defend ourselves if we have to. And so we didn't end up needing to, but there was chaos there that day so people did not accept the results of the election ever. People didn't there was no super peaceful transition of power. I mean, people still did what they did, and people did stuff behind the scenes to undermine it the whole time. And so I'm not saying I want anything like that to keep continually happen or anything like that. But I'm just saying people have short attention spans, and they just kind of would ignore history. But if you're in your own little bubble, maybe you didn't know or you didn't understand, because I wrote about all this stuff that happened at the the day of the inauguration, and people were like, "Wow, I had no idea that happened." And they're like, "We're watching the news and none of it, they didn't show any of that." So I think that's one reason why. What are some things people can do? I think people need to be involved more in actually changing the culture. The left has the media, they have tech giants, they have entertainment, they have academia, and now they have the levers of not all the levers of local government, obviously, but the presidency as it stands right now, and the Senate, and the House. So they have a lot of levers right there. I think people are going to have to find a way to get engaged, um, and kind of work their way up. But if you want to change things politically, you have to change things culturally. And talk to your neighbors, talk to your friends, get involved in churches and try to restore some of that moral values that you have, and to spread that around. Like when my sister called and asked, like, what are we going to do next 4 years? I said, I'm going to pray and I'm going to spread the gospel. That's what I'm going to do. And on this media front, that I have, I can still try to um, speak my perspective, and try to share some news and insight, and um, spread information that way, and reach people politically that way. But so that's another front on a way that I can do. But there are other things at play that are besides just the political. And you got to be involved in your kids' schools. You got to watch what they teach your kids. I had a friend that was signed up to be like on a sex education panel or board or whatever, as they were trying to decide curriculum, because she knew that they were going to try to do some crazy stuff. And they tried, and as young as kindergarten, they were trying to teach sexual education stuff about in Michigan, sex education is supposed to be with the focus on abstinence, but they are trying to do all this gender theory and all kind of other stuff. And that was way outside of the box. As young as like kindergarten, they're trying to do the stuff. So she had to push back all the time. So be involved, find a way to be involved and be productive, but don't stress yourself out too much about this stuff. Like I was upset when Obama won in 2008, and I like and in 2012. But I took my moment and I cried a little bit for like, in the night, and I woke up and I went to work the next day. And I was like, you know what, God, you're still in control, and I'm still in control of what I do and my destiny, my world around me. I know it's hard to feel like that right now when literally the government is impeding on people's livelihoods. So the problem right now is that government is too large and government is too imposing. Um, but a lot of that is a local issue, and wish us luck about in 2022 with our elections. Um, but you have a lot of power in your sphere, so don't feel like so powerless because the result may not end up being what you want or what you wanted. Because this is America, and you still have a lot of power as an individual, and you need to stand up for that. And America is bigger than a man. I hope your values are bigger than a man. I know a lot of people love Trump because he was someone who filled in a void that was there within, I think, America, and particularly the Republican Party. But I mean, and he transcended both parties, because there was like blue dog Democrats that went over to him too, and they just felt like there are people in government who don't genuinely care about them, and he made people feel like they did. And um, w- there kind of needs to be a new sort of person to fill that void, but they need to do things a bit more refined. I know people like the bull in the China shop way that Trump had, but there needs to be a little bit more elegance in the governing aspect. So I appreciate so much about what's happened the last 4 years, but particularly the beginning three, because 2020 was rough. But it's not the end. And some of you don't even believe it's the end of the result, and I guess anything could maybe happen until that day of the inauguration. But um, after election night, um, I heard a weird kind of peace about it, and I told people that I had a weird kind of peace about it. I said, I don't know if it's just kind of like because of it is what it is, just experience of like knowing that you might not like the result and you can get through it. If the Lord was just saying it's okay. I said I just kind of had a weird peace about it. Or maybe it's just because life goes on and other stuff was hitting the fan, and a lot has happened personally for me and my family since election night, and there's just other things going on in life that are bigger to some people than all this kind of going on. So just keep life in perspective. Someone saying it's only the end of Act One. Someone said it's fraudulent election. Pence let us down. Everybody's got to have the conviction to go on with that. Everyone didn't probably feel that enough evidence was there and clearly there to make that kind of decision. I don't think there's some kind of cabal with Pence. He's been very, I would say, loyal to the cause, but still respectful and truthful to himself as well. He's been with the president through a lot and of ups and downs. And I don't think some of I get people are upset. I just don't feel like a lot of the attacks on Pence are fair. And as I said earlier, and I won't get too much on this, I think people are kind of being too harsh on people who aren't like totally on their train. And I get it. But have a little bit more grace for people who don't see things your way. Just have a little bit more grace. And at the end of the day, we still all gotta kind of build our country back. Now, does that mean that people who I feel that were awful, that I'm just going to roll over for? No, because some people call for unity and they don't really want unity. They want you to bring you to heel, if I could quote Hillary Clinton for a second. And that's the case with Biden. He lied a lot. He's probably the worst candidate that's probably run, and the media did whatever they could to push him through. They ignored a lot of stories with him that were just awful. People they're like, he's a nice guy, he's such a nice guy, but that doesn't mean, just because you're a nice guy doesn't mean you're a good guy. And all the sort of lying and the racism, just like people talk about Trump or whatever. Biden, there's like a laundry list of stuff with Biden of just like awful stuff and that he said or done in the past and said recently. And when it was over and he's elected, he's like disrespecting like black leaders and all the other stuff. And there's some people with some buyer's remorse as far as Biden, and they're just like, oh, can't believe he's not reaching out. It's like they already told you or let you know that they were expecting your vote. They didn't need to reach out, and that doesn't mean they're going to reach out. And he's beholden to. He's always been someone who was a bought and paid for politician, and that hasn't changed, and it probably won't change as president, guys. And but they let a lot of chaos and stuff happen throughout the country. They weren't interested in bringing people together. They weren't interested in any kind of unity for the sake of us surviving. They just wanted the result that they wanted with the election. Like even doing stuff with, and I don't want to get to a vaccine argument, but obviously people are saying, oh, now, people need to take the vaccine, trust the vaccine, blah, blah, blah. When Trump was talking about trying to get a vaccine, people were saying it would take a miracle to get a vaccine, or that's Trump's vaccine, I wouldn't trust it, blah, blah, blah. So even stuff like that, they would undermine any sort of positive outcome that could come just because they wanted to have all these negative feelings going into November to better, because people are upset. That's bad news for the incumbent. So that was, why they're okay with the riots, or not calling them riots and just kind of letting stuff happen and businesses burn down, and people not being able to survive the whole COVID things as far as financially, and why they didn't want to pass any sort of relief bill prior to the election. I mean, Nancy Pelosi practically spelled it out that way. So there's a lot of people who genuinely will risk your safety, your livelihood, just to get what they want, and then they expect to just you to fall in line. um I'm not okay with that. I'm not okay with that. I'm not going to say that he's not my president or anything like. I'm not going to do that, but I'm not going to be all roses and sunshine and so on. And I'm going to keep talking about these things that he did. I'm going to keep talking about the things that they're going to do. And I'm not going to just roll over because they said, "Oh, now is a call for unity." I'm not going to do anything crazy or anything like that, but I'm not just going to, play dead because you told me to. So they don't care about unity. They just want to bring people to heel. And so if people, and there's a lot of things that people don't like about Trump, that Biden shares similar qualities, like talking about Trump and how he talks about the media. Biden gets testy with people who don't like him or disagree with him all the time. That happens quite a bit. He doesn't like to be pushed that kind of way either. So there's things that people said they didn't like about Trump that Biden shares similarities with, and they're just going to take being punched in the face because he plays for their team. So it'll be an interesting 4 years, but you guys stay strong. And you keep, fighting the good fight, but fight it wisely. And I guess that's kind of all my thoughts on stuff that happened. I think people need to, a lot of things were said yesterday and a lot of things were said today. I think people just kind of need to calm down and breathe and kind of get back on track with some stuff and try to build some perspective. Like, I saw people saying that yesterday was the darkest day in American history from the time they've been alive. And I'm like, there was someone who tried to assassinate Steve Scalise and a lot of other Republican legislators at a baseball practice game. And like there have been a lot of dark days, and there's a lot of them were during those riots over the summer. And I know people say that because of the particular thing was happening yesterday with the election and the certifying the results, but they came back and they did it that night. But there's been other incidents where there have been some really horrific things that have happened in our nation's history. And as far as discourse, as far as terrorism, and some domestic terrorism too, that, I don't know, don't even like pale, and what happened yesterday doesn't even pale in comparison to me. Like, it was crazy watching it, but I don't know, just, I don't know, get some more perspective. Just calm down, go watch a movie or chill out, because there's just other, to me, it was weird when I read that. I'm like, there's definitely other things. I can understand people being upset, don't get me wrong, but it's not the end of democracy. It's not the end of the Republican Party. It's not the end of conservatism. I don't even know if it's particularly the end of MAGA or anything like that. People will survive, and even if Trump kind of dips out, I don't think he's going to run in 2024, because I don't know why he would, honestly. He can go golfing, not be harassed every day by the media. I don't know why he would do it again. So I think he'll get into civilian life and just be like, it'll be another 4 years. He'll be older. I guess he'll be as old as Biden was when he won. But I don't think he'd want to. But that doesn't mean that people don't need to go on. And like I said, Trump filled the void. And if someone is smart, they will look at the wise and good things that happened with Trump. And he was someone who actually tried to solve some problems. That's the problem with like Washington and stuff. Like, too many people need problems to make money, to make deals, to get things that they want passed and legislated and stuff like that. But a lot of people don't actually want to solve problems. Like, I don't think anyone else is probably incapable of making some of the Middle East deals that he did. But he wanted to actually get something solved. So that's what they did. So if someone can kind of bring that same energy, but do things more refined, they can have a stronger MAGA movement. You probably have to call it something else though. But there's good things to take away from it. And it's been a heck of a time today, this week, since the election, before the election from 2016, 15, and just so on. But life goes on. And just relax, guys. Just relax. And some of this what about him is silly that people are doing. I don't want to go back into rehash the whole video. But thank you guys for listening. As I kind of talk out my feelings and talk out things with you guys. If you liked this podcast, please visit Black Tea News. You can look at some of the merchandise and other stuff that we have on there. And also, if you would like to support, you can go ahead and support as well. Make sure you're subscribed, and we'll keep, spreading the truth and spreading, information, and try to encourage you guys. Be blessed. Be blessed.